You're doing weird things there. You do slide thing.
Right.
Did you actually do it on the display though?
Yeah.
Up there?
Yeah.
It's
It's a Google Doc, isn't it?
So guys, there's a few more minutes before we start. Just to say that we're going to be using the chat mic for questions at the end. So please keep your last slide ideally, and then you can sort them through it. Because you have to get pretty close. So just I'll be really good just to make you aware, all right?
Thanks. That's weird. I mean, it wasn't like that a minute ago.
It wasn't at all.
Can we?
Shall we start anyway and get them to resolve it? Shall we start anyway? I'm sure they'll resolve it in a minute.
There we go.
Yeah?
There you go.
Don't get out. It's all right. He's just going to click that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we just put that? Can we just put the thingy on now?
Do you want to just pick?
Yeah.
You quit with the presentation effect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
So I'll leave.
Yeah. Thank you.
Happy there. Doing my
What, just regular
doing
things?
a blade, yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then testing.
I mean, is it more for the...
Because it's so sensitive,
Yeah.
obviously it's bouncing around. So if you have it any stronger, and then you go crazy because it's like, yeah. But and plus the room's so loud. That's the like, but the recording will become a lot better. Yeah. You're right. So yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see so many people in the house. Okay, so this is day 2 of Detour Ahead. We have 4 lectures today. This is the first. Please, I'd like to introduce you to Patricio Forester. So let me say a few words about him before he jumps in and charismatically puts his case to you. So he was born in Argentina. He studied in Buenos Aires. Spent a bit of time in New York, I hear.
Yeah.
And then you came to London in the mid-90s. You went to Goldsmiths. And you've been here and based in Lewisham ever since. And we met in the late 90s, I think.
Where?
We met during FedEx-ish.
That's right,
So,
yeah.
yes, this is the time.
The DIY. The
DIY, yeah. So this is a time when London felt like everywhere could be a potential art scene, and arts festivals are popping up all over the place. And me and Patricia were doing our little thing locally out on the streets, and we definitely got on with the guy that owned the DIY shop, Johnny.
Yeah.
So you made your first mural for Deptford X, or for one of the Deptford X's, haven't you? That's actually like very well-known landmark in the area. You'll probably talk about that at some point. And then after that, that kind of started off your journey, didn't it? And you established Artmongers, and then you sort of worked throughout the borough and internationally. So hopefully we'll hear about all of that. Italy, Spain, Argentina, Azerbaijan, Algeria. You've even done some work in refugee camps with communities, haven't you? For quite a long time, actually. And Patricio is also involved, or has been involved, in setting up other community initiatives like community libraries and cafes and gardens. And recently, he's established the Lewisham School of Muralism, which is, it's in partnership with Goldsmiths College and other local stakeholders. And again, I'll let Patricio talk about that. So please, round of applause for Patricio.
Hello, thank you. Oh, I won't do any. Okay, so I'm really happy to be here. I cycled all the way from Deptford, and I've never been to the university, so I was very happy to see all the landscape, move around London, and I guess see how you're geographically located, what the opportunities around outside the university might be for any new murals. So I wanted to present today the sort of journey that I've done since, I suppose, I started making art when I was a kid. I always loved making art. But I guess the difficulty about making art is who you do it for, you know, what do you find satisfying to do, what you like making. So all of these questions since my childhood were really important. For example, my sister used to commission me when I was a kid. She said, "Can you do some drawings for my class?" So I was really proud that I was like 4 years younger than her. So I always saw art not just like what I burningly wanted to say, but you know, how to engage with others. And in fact, I would argue that it's quite a healthy position to be in as an artist, to looking out to what others want and engage in that process. So today I'm going to show you how I went about making art, and I guess one of the hardest things for an artist, apart from learning all the technicalities of your craft, is where you put your heart to make art. And that, to me, is one of the most important things and the biggest task that you will face as artists. If you feel that you're doing art in a way that, you know, it's meaningful to you, then you're winning. If you feel that kind of you're part of a system like I did, like I didn't really want to be in the art system or in the gallery system, so I just went, you know what, I'm going to walk out. But before that, I'm going to show you a little, the beginning of the journey here was in 95. Yeah, this is a mural that I did with kids, where we presented the question, what will Lewisham be like in 100 years' time? And the kids were going, okay, you know, there's going to be like this problem, that problem. And then we challenged them to find one single solution for it, which is kind of silly, really. So some amazing thinker came up with this concept, a sort of paste tube that said, fix everything, but don't overdo it. For a very long time, I've been thinking about how to make art that comments on gentrification, because it is kind of like a problem. But I'm not really entirely against it, but it's problematic. And I think some of the subjects are, when you try and face them head on, they're a bit boring. But I think this is a very subtle way of talking about it. You know, like anything could become a problem. Even your desire to improve things can, if you overdo it, become a problem. So it's forward, right? Let's see. Yeah. So today I'm gonna, it's kind of like a fun way of presenting with some of the ideas and an instruction manual. The first one, choose something you really like doing as your contribution to the world. Not just art, but how you make the art, how you understand it, the energy exchange that you have with others. If you choose something you really like doing, for a long time, it doesn't really matter where you struggle or not, because most of the time, most of your day, you'll be doing something that you like doing. I know it's a bit utopian, but in my mind, it's better to have a good problem than a bad solution. So if you're doing something which you don't like that much, then it will take over your life gradually, like a job, for example. So my journey was quite, I just didn't want to do anything that wasn't art, or that I felt wasn't really addressing me as my artistic needs and so on. So it was quite extreme, really. I know not everybody will want to take that route. I was skinned for about 15 years, but I was still happy. I was still doing my work. I was sometimes miserable as well. But I built a really strong core between myself and my art. So I started, my interest in taking onto the streets came from performance. Why? Because no one can tell you what to wear, and the punks knew this. You can present yourself in any public situation and interfere with it, the normality of it, or the assumptions that are made or set in public spaces, and you can break and intervene in them. And I was interested in that. So I started to do a collection of wearable art. This one, I'm here on this side. It's called Embarrassed Overall, and it was a portrait of me going, "Don't look at me, but look at me, don't look at me." It was kind of inviting to be looked at, but also covering myself in the painting and also having my free hands. So it's kind of like a trompe-l'oeil, an eye trick. And this is Julian, who later on, this was part of it was my partner when we founded Artmongers. This was a protest in the middle of the market because of too many betting shops. So we invited a number of artists to come and play with us and run dressed up in silly outfits from one betting shop to the other. And what was nice about this is that we were in front of confronting, what happens usually in the market. And the name Artmongers was one of, I think, trying to make art in the mongering way, in a trade way, in like, I've got a shop, I'm here. If the art that I sold you breaks, you can talk to me. Like interactive, not a way in a bubble, but as part of the services that we live in society. The big question really is, how do you want to contribute to society, and how you're going to invent your own method to participate in that. Clearly, running like this in the market wasn't really going to become a sustainable idea, but we were having some fun and we were protesting, which gave us some energy. So part of the taking on the street, we did different things. I think I've learned how to introduce humor in my artwork when I came to London. I think this is one of the heritages that I was interested in. In a way, the art that I did before was a little bit pompous. And when I was at Goldsmiths, people were asking me, why are you copying Anthony Tapier's? You know, and it was a great question. I didn't know why. But if you find yourself kind of copying somebody, forget about it. The idea of humor in art, it's really good because half of the problem with art is that if you're like going onto one on your own, no one really understands what you're talking about. You don't really want that. You want people to get your art. And with humor, you have to describe the context, because otherwise no one really gets the joke. And humor is forced to describe a context and then break that context. So this was a humorous piece that I did as part of, you know, sort of breaking into the normality of the suburbs in where I live. Another wearable art. This is like actual real police on a May Day march. I was kind of into improvising a lot, wearing something, see what happens. Yeah, so I think another element is that you have to use your art to turn things on its head. So somebody told me during Diana's wedding, her funeral, you're not even British, when I was reading through some of the messages that she got. She was dead, she couldn't read them. So I thought, I can read them, surely. And somebody said, you're not even British to me. I was like, okay, what do I do with this? And I'm sure you all get some difficult stuff happening to you. And my advice is use it in your art. Don't think that your art has to be about, you know, far away things. It's got to be alive. The more alive it is when it really affects you, and you're building your ladder away from that upset. So I did. My dad, funnily, because I've come from a sort of English background, moved to Argentina. My dad has given me a tweed jacket, to pretend to be British while I was in Argentina. And so I decided to paint in oil paint, thick, pink. You're not even British. And then I went, actually, the Argentinians will say the same thing to the Bolivians, and the Germans, and the Spanish, and the Americans, Italians. And so I made a collection of wearable artworks, and this is at Saatchi Gallery. What's that? Alex Katz. This picture appeared in Tatler, which was quite funny. It's like so I got into this idea that art could be inside the audience, but I didn't. It was part of this sort of thinking, like, how can I bring art in a way that is fluid and no one can stop you? So I sort of done a couple of openings, just, you know, interfering with whatever was officially going on. And I found a huge amount of space in the audience. You know, why does art have to be on the wall or on the floor or on the ceiling or in a film? The audience is empty. The audience brings itself. So my thought was, okay, let's just dress the audience. Oops. Back. So I was never really going to make a living out of dressing up and dressing others up, although it seemed like a good tourist business to dress up some tourists and throw them into the city, because everybody looks at you in a different way. So that's quite exciting. But I never really pursued that. I wasn't really that interested in that. So my advice is that you do things that are really fun and close to you and meaningful, but where you're not having all the fun yourself. You've got to create value for others. Others have to sort of get a sense of, yeah, I like that. You know, that affects me in a positive way. So this is the mural Amanda was mentioning. You see, there is a sort of connection between clothing and interventions, I think it was. Instead of painting a mural where you're importing the narrative started with the shape of the wall. What can I do here? Right? And this was part of Detour Ahead. It was my first mural. There was a big advertising hoarding here. And I thought, well, people are going to graffiti down here, so I need to go high. I started thinking about hanging things from the chimneys. And then I had an idea. I drew this idea, and then I thought, this is too silly. And then my partner at the time said, no, maybe I had many other ideas. And then she said, no, maybe that one was all right. And then eventually it became a local landmark. It's been there 20 years, and it's associated with Deptford. It was, if I was commissioned this, I wouldn't really have had the freedom to be so silly. It's a kind of using humor rather than trying to be too serious about it. Then the hoarding left for some reason, and the guy said, well, carry on. I thought, well, that was already an icon, and I thought, Julian, my partner that was running on that race, said, maybe just keep it to the chimneys, and it was a great idea, because it's got like a Magritte look. And so we added the third. It was, in a way, the problem with it was it's too balanced. And of course, some people think that this is about man and woman. It's not really. It's about roles. It's about dressing up. It's about going out, being someone else. And this is the interfering third. Anyway, when this mural happened, something extraordinary happened to me, which was the Lewisham Council suddenly saw the value on what I was doing, and they wanted to print a leaflet saying, hey, come to Deptford, this is cool. And they used the mural, and they put me in a creative enterprise course. And this is where I started to think about how to sustain my practice. So Julian, who had helped me in many other attempts to make art and so on, I asked him if he wanted to team up, and he said, yeah. So we formed Artmongers in 2003, and it kind of forced us to think about what we were doing in a standard way, and that's cool for artists. I mean, I'm dyslexic, all over the place, I have many ideas all the time, but having to set a business with a business plan, well, I didn't really write a business plan. We kind of vaguely thought, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is our offer, and this is what we plan to do. So this was very good practice, I think. If you want to make art that is not part of the art, being found by, a gallery and all of that, and then wait until you're famous, what you've got to do is that you've got to learn how to live like an artist and make a living out of it. This was one of my ambitions. So we set up Artmongers, and we've kind of, we've been at it for 20 years, 20 few years. The most important virtue I found was patience and resilience during this process, because it was hard. I think I was 14 years overdrawn, £4,000. That was the bottom line. But it's sort of, I saw it as an investment. It was my period of research, where I was sort of finding out how I wanted to operate and so on. Of course, if you're set up to do your own thing, you'll have to work 3 times more than anybody else, and that's tough, but it's exciting as well. You have to do everything. You have to be prepared to use all your talents, not just the art talent. You have to talk, you have to, be physical, you have to, I like sports, I also like, people. So there was other elements of my being that weren't just about making art that I chucked into that bag, and did all right, really. That bag became bigger as the more we stuck to it, the more skills we learned. Resist gloom with creative impulse. That was really a survival tactic. If it got really difficult, make another artwork, make something amazing, which make you feel like, yeah, I did that. That is who I want to be. Every now and then, I did a mural with no payment just for the hell of it, because I wanted to. This is one of them. It's got some freedom about it. It's the market boxes from Deptford, from material that comes from all over the world. And then they're chucked in the market, and it's just such a rich, imagine somebody in the Gambia designing Mr. Fresh, or Kenya, or in China. It's just thinking about how in London we receive lots of produce, and I wanted to make a comparison, which is not really necessarily what people get, but I'm one of those people that came on a box, and the extraordinary diversity of London, again, is not something that you really want to talk about it directly, head on. You want to, be able to express it with something that is already here, rather than, present it. So yeah, invited lots of people to paint. This took about 4 days, maybe 12, 15 people painted, some kids. Yeah, a friend of mine brought some music. It was great. Summer day, happy times. This was for a school. They wanted us to create a hub for music, because they're called Beecroft Gardens. So we the kids, we got ideas from the kids, and we designed this sort of wacky trompe-l'oeil. This, if you could see, this is all stretched from here, so that it's stretched into one thing, but it's sort of anamorphic. That doesn't matter, but yeah, so kids painted it under it, and on the back there was another design. That's quite, this was during the lockdown. What was amazing is that you have to see yourself in a situation of adversity as part of the solution. So instead of like staying at home, I just put myself forward to do murals with the key workers while they're at school, and we had to learn how to do extraordinary amounts of bureaucracy to do all the risk assessments and health and safety, so that we could do that. This is in Deptford. This is the second mural I paint in this site, and that's wanted to say something about commitment to a local area. So what I did as a person who came from Argentina, my tactic was, how do I integrate myself as an artist in London? There's no way I could just take the whole of London and be recognized for my work. So I thought, if I set a perimeter of 3 square miles and start making art in the street, then people will start recognizing hey, that's the way they did over there. Oh, and it's a sort of slow burner safety net. I work for shops, and I work for the council, and people kind of started to make the connection. So the first mural that I painted here, there was these 3 major buttresses, and I thought, I'll paint a landscape with pillars. It sort of was a bit self-defeating, because it was about hiding the pillars. Once the pillars were hidden, which they were, people didn't understand why I painted that. And I said, do you see the pillars? Oh, where are the pillars? So it's a bit badly thought. I got some money from the council to restore it, and instead of restoring it, I did another picture. And the mayor of Lewisham recounts on the opening that he was like passing in the car going, hold on, that's not restoration, that's a new thing. Whoops. Okay, so I thought, in a way, it was a confidence thing. I thought, these pillars, I could destroy them with, visuals. And I was interested in the arena, because this is a space where there's lots of street drinking, which is a legitimate tradition in Deptford. And I'm friends with the royalty, street drinking royalty, so who drinks here. So I didn't really want to impose, but I wanted to make things better. So I thought, if people If people see that there are some individuals that are like about to kill themselves, but they're inside the arena, then they'll go, yeah, the gladiators, they're just fighting. It normalizes the situation instead of pushing people around. So I did the arena. It's a mural that looks back on us, and then a labyrinth and the city. I think it coincides with me going to Petra to work with refugees, and there was a sort of amphitheater there too. But the street drinking royalty Errol explained at the opening, this is like a psychological scenario. So sometimes you look at life as a spectacle and you are in the arena. Sometimes things get complicated and you're in the labyrinth, and sometimes, only sometimes, you're able to see the horizon and the distance. Those words went straight into the plaque. 2014, I think. Why? I'll carry on. Oh, I said why? Why, yeah.
Well, I've known Deb for a long time.
All right.
It's quite interesting to see my life flash before my eyes.
Right.
That's quite recent.
The first one was in 2008, I think, and the second one, I think, probably 2014, I think. 2014. It's a guess, I'm guessing. The other thing about making murals is that they need to maintain their curiosity. You can't make something that is really obvious because people get tired of it. And in a way, you're imposing an image for the rest of people's lives, more or less. I mean, maybe the other one was 20 years. So I started to think about putting riddles, like, why is that? Why is that there? Why a coat hanger? It's a question is always going to come back with a different answer. And I was interested in the coat hanger as an extraordinary design, really, because you see the other one was about the tie and necklace, but this was about the shoulders, and still relating houses and the human body, but in a kind of odd way. I was interested in that 3D-ness of it, and the question, what do I put to it? What clothing will it go? And because it's empty, so I'm adding something that points at something never there. And in that kind of riddle, I think it's sustained itself through time, I hope. The wind-up kit is no longer there. Also 100 meters from the other one, came later. This is earlier in Brockley. Then it became like a trend, Brockley street art and so on. But potential. What will happen if you wound up a key? It's an open question. Somebody said, you know what my son said to me? Dad, there's a robot inside the house. This, beautiful provocation and running with it. The kids that have really thought about it. I thought, you know what this is? This is about a robot inside the house. Find your niche. Mix your talents and skills in unusual ways. Artmongers, our niche was art in situations of adversity. We thought there's so much adversity in the world, we've got to be able to make something out of it. We've got to be able to make a living out of working in adverse situations. And we did. This is work in hospitals. The beautiful Measure Your Highness, a measuring device for kids to measure their highness, not their height, with Her Majesty exact size. I think 1 m. Working in National Hospital of Azerbaijan, or we basically did about 5 different hospitals. St. Thomas for autistic kids, where we learned about the autistic condition, and we were like the artistic chip inside a group of experts that told us, you know what, autistic kids don't really like saturated colors. They need 70% gray. This is great for us to know. So in a way, I was beginning to work with, instead of what's called site-specific, audience-specific. We were targeting conditions, art made for specific groups. And yeah, it was a big breakthrough. It happened just because, and then people saw, oh yeah, you'll be good at this. You know, it's not that we look for it. Talking about adverse situations, we thought when the refugee crisis started, the Syrian war, we thought somebody, I guess a byproduct of the way we work is that we start conversations with people. People see our work, they go, oh yeah, this, that, and the other. The conversation enlarges. Then when you're not prepared, people come and say, you know what you should do? What? Work in a refugee camp. Oh, that sounds good. Okay. So we organized our path, direct path to working in Asrak camp in Jordan. And we turned up there with one idea on our sleeve, which was this. They were called peace rocks or peace rocks. And we basically took the rocks from the floor, engaged the kids in a joyful experience of dunking a stone that was just dead on the floor into a pot of glossy paint and move them around and put them on the fence and let them drip. We were using it as a metaphor for you can change, you can transform. Use art to make you think about mobility, transformation, things that might help with the feeling and the sense of being stuck. So this is a video. How can we turn this on? Do you know? There's got to be a... Is there... No? Is there a link? Huh? Never mind. Okay, never mind.
Just hit loud. Okay, hold on.
Oh yeah, there we are. Thank you. Volume? Never mind. Just think about the music. It was, so this was in the camp. We developed a technique to do a mosaic on the floor in the middle of the desert.
The voice gets quiet.
Nice, huh? Can you say that again? Yeah, maybe say that again.
There's a moment in the workshop where everything goes really silent and the voice gets quiet.
The mosaics on the floor, just with stones. Nice, huh? So we need to go back to... Can we go back to the presentation? Thank you. So yeah, eventually UNHCR did this video. We've been going there every year, twice a year. We develop relationships of kids that grow up, and it's wonderful, really. I'm humble. I'm dying to go back because the kids are still there. But yeah, so what we did was, the way we got there was we got permission to go there through Care International, but we asked the people that lived inside our 3 square miles where we created the value in the streets in Southeast London to pay for us. Maybe they just didn't want to see us anymore, but they said, yeah, we'll pay for you. We raised between £5,000 and £10,000, and so then we offered ourselves as partners to them. So we've got this project, and what we were doing really is we were using what we learned in Deptford to do it somewhere else, and it was fantastic sort of way of, taking what you do here over there and in the process making something totally new and unexpected. Oops. This is another video, but we'll leave it. Or can we play it? Sorry. Can we play this one as well? This used to be very simple in my... So this is in a hospital in Charing Cross with a new project.
We had some art already.
Can you go full screen?
And we thought about what else we could decorate, what other areas. And someone mentioned a mural in this office corridor, which would include or make reference to us as the whole team. We already had good links with the Imperial charity, and so they gave us some guidance. Once I got in touch with Patricio, it started crystallizing into something that we could all contribute to, where our staff could make a mark on our own physical environment around us. So the idea of the global village, and that kind of question, which village did you grow up in? Patricia hit upon it after initial conversations with staff. And it really resonated with me because actually we have a lot of pride in our department, in our little team of our international diversity.
Cool. Yes. So yeah, this was in a recent project, really exciting. I got asked to do something for the staff after the pandemic, area just for staff. And so we went there and we started sort of painting white. We thought, okay, the way to engage everyone, so, when you're busy, you become a lot more approachable than if you're like waiting with a, So we started asking questions, and eventually we came up with this concept of like, we wanted to, again, intervene the logic of the space with something that was precious to the people who walk in and out, who are in a hurry. It's an A&E department, think about that. So we came up with this concept of memories of childhood. When you're a kid, countries or cities, big cities, don't really exist. That comes a lot later, right? I was Argentinian when I was 3 or 4. I was just a kid in a place, right? And so we wanted to go back to that sense of where did you grow up in when you were a kid, and tell us something precious about something that happened, important to you. So we set up to make drawings with them and record the name of the first village or, neighborhood or hamlet that the staff remembered. And so it was very specific, and people started to go, whose memory is that? So the bubbles, this one was from an old doctor, senior doctor said, I used to go to school and I had 2 ways, one through the churchyard, I was really scared of, and the other one was the long way. So when I took the really scary path, it was really exciting. So we painted that. This is his thing. So yeah, it was a fun. Okay, can we go back to the asset? Lovely. So I did a lot of work that was really about my own mental thing, and I think that's, in a way, I respect other people doing it. For me, I found my mental health improved the more I leaned towards the outside. What's happening with you? What are you thinking about? Shall we do something? What can we do that surprises you and me? That's the other thing, is that I don't really just do a service. It's like I want to be excited about it too. So when we went to the refugee camp, we didn't represent their history because I don't know anything about that. We just make things up that we both found exciting to do. And there's also, you know, it's like sometimes it can be overwhelming, the amount of difficulty that a person can face. But I would like to put this into your mind, which is don't doubt that you can really have a massive impact if you stick to it, if you decide to do it. You know, you can make a difference. Of course, it's not going to, you know, save the world, but the arts is never going to save the world. You just have to kind of make it better for locally, for individuals and situations, rather than the big picture. So we kind of became specialists in making work in hospitals. We did one in Argentina. This is a bit of the work for autistic kids with the theme of the wind, very subtle theme of how the wind affects us. And we did films, and we did all sorts of different things. User-specific, you see? Another school. This was, you can't really see that picture. It's a lovely piece where the security, the place, we call the place El Nido, the nest, is used for kids who were born prematurely. So the security at the entrance was sitting on a nest, which made him totally ridiculous. Just using art and humor also in an institutional way, and naming the place again. I said, no, this is, or finding a nickname for it. I always think that it's important, especially nowadays with social media, but even before that, is that your art has high shareability. What does that mean? If you're like, for example, playing football and no one wants to play with you because whatever, so one reason, then it's really hard. The sense of feeling isolated is worse because you want to, but then you have to make sure that your art, the things that you produce, your energy starting every morning is ready to share, it's ready to engage with others. People need to want it. You know, you have to, in a way, put yourself in a position of doing things that people think, yeah, I'll have a bit of that, I'll play with you. You know, I'll pay you a bit of money for that. And for that, it needs to have high shareability. What do I mean by that? It needs to somehow be attractive, not just in a banal way, but it needs to have something that the layman or the laywoman can go, that is really beautiful, that is art. Even if they, 10 minutes? Gosh. Okay. This is not going forward. Okay. Okay, we won't do this. Don't wait until all the answers to make a start. I think we all know that. We have to, it's called action research. You know, go do things, make your errors cheaply. And I think if you've got 10 minutes to the end, then I will skip all this. I will just say that I formed the Lewisham School of Muralism, soon to become the London School of Muralism. And I was so out of my depth with it, because I've never really taught before, and I never wanted to use teaching to save me from my inabilities to live as an artist. So first, I made sure that I lived as an artist, and then I thought, well, now it makes sense for me to teach because people are coming to me and say, how do you do this? How do you do that? So it was a response to something already happening. So shall we do questions? I'm worried to get to the end without any interaction. Yeah? Any questions? Yes. Maybe louder. Yeah.
When you left the Azraq camp,
Yes.
have you
it must have been very overwhelming for you.
Yes,
I assume.
it was.
Have you left with a plan? So you go
Did
back.
I arrive with a plan or left with a plan?
Yeah. Have you left with a plan as an artist to go back?
Did I make a plan to go back? Did I arrive as a plan?
I mean, you arrived there with a plan.
Yes.
But have you left with a plan?
It's a good question. Yeah, I kind of left with a sense of euphoria of being that person that managed to go there with the money from the neighbors and that managed to do something which was a lot more sort of crazy than what the refugees were used to. And they, the people that were the boss kind of like said, okay, we don't know much about this, but trusted me. And yeah, so I wanted to come back, and we did fundraise twice a year to go back. So my plan was to go back. The issue really was that in a way, when we weren't there, then not much happened with the work that we did, which is like lighting a match and then it going off until you come back to light it. But we did our best. Yes. Oops.
Sorry, I'm used to that. I wanted to ask a question, but it's a kind of like a strange one. I wanted to ask if someone ever asked you to do a mural in their house or like on their house or something like that.
Yeah.
Did it happen? Or,
Yeah,
and how was the experience?
it does happen a lot. I don't like it.
Oh, why?
Well, because okay, so that's part of the things that I care about. I want the art to be in public spaces. I've done private murals, but I had no feelings for it. I remember painting a jacuzzi, like a background. I was painting a chair in a rich person's house. I was like, I'm here painting. It's meant to be the thing I like doing, but I have no feelings. So I realized that to me, what was important was not just to paint, but to paint in the right way for the right people, for the people that, what I started at the beginning, the heart in the right place for me was painting in a refugee camp, painting in a shithole in Deptford, if there was one, was a lot better, a lot more enticing than in a private home. Of course, sometimes people have to make a living, but yeah, I associate my mural practice with publicness.
Yeah, I was guessing that. I was just wondering perhaps like how you feel about creating private work then.
Yeah, this is why I stopped making paintings. I didn't want people to go, oh, I like that. This is my new car and new artwork. So another question?
I feel like the same, to be honest.
The box, pass it over. We've got 10 minutes. Whoa.
Do you find yourself restricted when working for the council at all?
Say that again?
Do you find yourself restricted when working in a public space? Like, do you find that there are certain things that you're not allowed to paint on those walls, or do you not really care?
Yeah, I think limitation is part of the art practice. My art teacher used to make us work with like 2 colors and ochre. And I grew up out of a tradition of making art that addresses progress through limitation. So I don't really believe that you have to be free in any context. As sometimes the restrictions are really what's going to make you push yourself. For example, when we did the Peace Rocks, the commander, because this is like a war zone, said, no, you're decorating weapons. And I went, we're not decorating weapons, we're doing Peace Rocks. So the fact that limit was there made me define myself, and this artwork is called Peace Rocks. So limitations welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah.
So a lot of your work is kind of community outreach. You work with children in social work, you work with refugees. Is that kind of something you fell into, or that was something that you initiated yourself, kind of thing?
I think fell into sounds like the right. What happened was that the sequence, it doesn't really matter how the sequence happened, but the way it happened was I set up 3 square miles, and then I thought, if I carry on making art in these 3 square miles, people are going to lynch me because he can't really about what I want all the time. So within those limits, I thought, I need to start asking what other people want. And also it was more fun. So say I wanted to do that artwork on the tree, then I went to the schools and I thought, let's do all the trees. And then the kids did their own thing. You see what I mean? So it became, it was to do with energy. If it's about yourself and what you want, I think you might find yourself running out of energy. Energy comes from engaging others, in my opinion, and splitting for what you want a little bit. Yeah, but I sometimes get really tired of it, I won't lie. Sometimes in Valencia, where my partner's from, I go there and make a mural like, hey, can I paint that wall? Yeah, paint that wall, boom. So it is tiring. Yeah, so I think multiply, but I think, yeah, I do get tired of it. It's a tedious process. And most of the time you're thinking, this is in a participatory process, you might think, this is going nowhere. How am I going to make an artwork with this series of cliches? But that's also a good problem to have. How to transform what people give you into a good artwork. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hello.
Yes. 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 Yeah, so we generate a huge amount of projects all the time, things that are just beginning, things that are, so, we sort of have, what's called juggling. But we do see ourselves as either part of a chip of a bigger team, for example, in the autistic kids. So our expertise is this much. And then we have a team also that also do other things. And now what's happened with the School of Muralism is that I train young people, and then part of the graduates have become part of my team. So it's sort of like, but Artmongers really was started with the realization that you can't do everything on your own. So when I was confronted with the question, shall I call it Artmonger or Artmongers? You know what I did. Team, group. So anybody who works with us is also an Artmonger. Any other question?
Yep.
Yes.
When you make a mural in Deptford, do you ask people what they want, or can you just make up whatever you want?
It needs to be part of a conversation. If it's in Valencia and I'm resting from this process, it's what I want and they accept. Sometimes it happens. I find doing this in London is quite hard, I think. But here, what I do is like I set up a conversation. The owner of the wall, you asked me as well that, you have to, there's a law in the UK that you can paint a mural if you have the landlord's permission. It's for anybody who don't like it to prove that it's an eyesore, and then they have, they can, if they're very persistent, take it down. After 7 years, you have natural planning permission on any artwork. But, for example, I don't really like having, and this is one of the problems, going back to your question of like one private client, is that the person, the owner of the wall, and the person who pays is the same. And there's no room. So I separated them, and I've got the gap between who pays and who's the owner of the wall, and I'm in the middle, right, looking for how to, get away with a little bit of what I want. My principle is we need to do something that we're all excited about. We can't do something that the landlord is just excited about, or the participants. So the trick is to develop a participatory process where you are, painting a mural is quite hard. You want to be like, I want to see what happens when I paint this. You can't just go like, oh no, they told me to paint this. So it's about energy, but it needs to be part of a conversation. So I split really the power of the owner of the wall and the funder. Yeah? Somebody else? Amanda.
Thank you very much, Patricio. Very enlightening conversation. Actually, I was quite interested that you sort of, maybe I came across an article when you was making a distinction between the street artist and the muralist.
Yes.
Maybe you could talk about that a bit.
Yes. This is my first lesson at the School of Muralism, is what's the difference between muralism and street art? And because we haven't got a lot of time, I won't ask questions. The difference is the level of consideration that goes into painting a mural is not necessarily matched by street art. And I say this risking throwing bottles at me, but in muralism, we think about the wall, the way the mural fits on the architecture, the way everybody as audience is going to respond to. We have a manifesto of what the mural will do and will not do. Like, it will not offend, it will not, disturb children. Street artists don't necessarily think in this way. Street artists, they think it's cool. That a lot of street art is about artists working with their own language and interests, like in the studio, but putting it in the street. Not necessarily thinking, is this going to really, disturb a young kid? I mean, there's a lot of still, I get a feeling that street artists tend to work for other street artists' approval. I think muralism, there is a depth of consideration before you start, which is, in my view, not matched by street art.
So your idea is more about the collective nature of muralism and its kind of interaction with the public who are around it. I mean, I suppose street art has a kind of political, intention in just claiming the public space. But I suppose how you do that then, I suppose that becomes more complicated, I suppose. I mean, maybe it's a bit like the same as what, the kind of performance works you did in the first instance. They're kind of more about a civilian kind of taking on that space and being in it and being able to claim that. Whereas I suppose you're talking about more of community as a group. So, I mean, there's different ways to think about that, isn't there? Like being your civic duty and also being a citizen. Yeah. People claim that in quite selfish ways, but they can also claim that in more collective way, I suppose.
Yeah. See, it's very normal nowadays to have like street art festivals. So I'm like not really interested in that, because it's like flowing in a lot of street artists from around the world, and then the street artists go filling all the walls.
I mean, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because the whole thing about making the locale look beautiful or look different from what it did look is, as you said right at the beginning, it's kind of associated now with this idea of gentrification. And often artists, the fingers pointed at us. We go to these areas because they're cheap.
Yeah.
We set up studios, we do interesting things, there are opportunities. A lot of the time these things are grassroots, and then slowly they get co-opted often. And it's at the same time, like you say, you've got to eat.
Yes.
So it's a very tricky balance, isn't it? Kind of trying to survive and know what your relationship is with kind of the municipality, like with commercialism and with capitalism and all those sorts of things, as we all still kind of having to exist within it. And the free radical voice is a very difficult kind of road to walk.
Yeah, I guess, it is. And in a way, I think talking from an individual perspective, to me, it was more important when I painted an artwork, who benefits from it? Who pays? Yes, I mean, I've worked for a dictator. I don't believe I said that. Can you eliminate that from the... No, but for example, I got a request to do something for Azerbaijan. And I was thinking, I was skint, 15 grand, what do I do? And it was a dilemma. It is a proper dilemma. So the way I thought about it was, what if I went to work on a children's hospital and I developed a space for children who have nothing to do with the political situation, with the dictator, with me, and raise their game and raise their expectation, even their expectation of the hospital, because they never had or seen anything like this. On top of the team that I built when I did go, who were young artists, who were stuck under the dictator's rule, and who also want to develop. So I thought, I'll take the money, and I'll go there, and I'll do significant work, and I'll train young people to do it.
Well, thank you very much. Huh?
Who goes to your school? Is it postgraduates, undergraduates, college?
No, just lost people. You don't really need any classification. My school is outside, it's not university. I mean, we're supported by Goldsmiths, but it's not a university course. Well, we wanted young people, but then we ended up with 21 to 45. People like change makers, really, people who want to create a difference is the most important thing for us. They need to have artistic skills, obviously, but it's about their intention of how to use art that matters to us. Yeah.
Someone like one of us wanted to have a project, and they wanted to like put into project like domestic violence.
Yes.
I don't know, a lot of students have applied your school to this project being in some communities. Thank you. And some communities to create awareness. We can apply for your school?
Yeah, so we are in an interesting moment of the school because we run 3 pilots. In this pilot, I learned how to teach. I build a team of teachers, and we build the course. And this is ending in March. So we began to think about, again, the issue of money and continuing. And so it's for the first time in my life, I find myself thinking about a funding strategy. Usually it's like funding this one or that one. So we had to think very seriously about how we want to proceed. And we came up with this plan that we haven't acted out yet, which is instead of getting funding because we offer a free course, instead of funding all the money from, say, the Arts Council or in one chunk, which is a yes or a no, we are going to separate each place as a scholarship. And before we called it a free course place, now we call it a scholarship. And we are going to go out to different organizations, philanthropists, charities, and offer them that they pay for one place and a mural after the course. So we will, for example, go to a charity that is interested in domestic violence, and then we will have an opportunity for somebody working in that field. Then you apply to us with their money, you run the course, and then with their money, we help you to do your first mural about domestic violence inside your community.
Okay.
This is what we're going to act out.
Okay.
When it becomes the London School of Muralism in October. So if you want to apply, it will be probably in July.
Thank you very much. And we have overrun, but it's really great to hear all these questions. And maybe Patricio will hang around and answer a few more outside.
Yeah, I can be here for a bit.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Okay, and Dan, when's the next lecture? And who is it? 12 o'clock. Simon. Okay, Pablo Allison. Yes, at 12 o'clock. So let's see you back here. Have a refreshment.